Perfect.
Welcome to the Ring of Fire podcast. I'm Emmy.
AKA Birth Wizard.
Yeah. I'm Emmy, aka Birth Wizard.
There we go. And I'm Alex Barr.
And this is the place where we're here to talk about all those uncomfortable surges and get you to open up about tough topics. This week is going to be about the biases we picked up during our doula training, or even that we brought into our doula training. I ended up deciding on mine pretty quickly. How about you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
For sure.
Do you still hold these biases?
No.
No?
Nope.
So you've actually worked through it.
Yes.
Here.
I feel that... Does that work?
Oh,
no.
Oh.
Might not work. Okay. Anyways, I feel that the big part of the biases is once you understand them, you should probably figure out how to unlearn them. I mean, because then, you know what I'm saying? Because once you understand that you have a bias or have a bias against something, you should be working to unlearn that. If you didn't know it was a bias, then you just think it's like an opinion that you have.
Ooh, maybe we should define that. What is the difference between an opinion and a bias?
I don't even know how I would describe that.
I should probably look that up on Google right now, right?
Yes, let's look up the difference between an opinion and a bias. But this whole topic came up because I found something in my original notebook from my doula training where I had written about this. And I was like, oh, that's a little silly that I wrote that and didn't second guess it or think about it.
And it actually came up when we were meeting for like the first time to really discuss like if this would be a thing and like what this podcast would be about and like the things we would discuss. So let's talk about that then. What did you write in your notebook?
I wrote that...
First, maybe let's start here. Where did you do your training through if you're willing to like talk about that? You can even make it really blankety.
I just did it through a local birth center. I don't think it was the certification organization per se. I think it was a bias I already had, and that reinforced it.
Ooh.
Right? So it was something that I was like, oh, yeah. So what I had written was to encourage breastfeeding, you talk about the dangers of formula versus the benefits of breastfeeding.
Okay, you have to back up. What are the dangers of formula?
I didn't write anything else underneath it. That's the funny part. I had not written anything else underneath it. It was just like a statement. Like, I knew that, right? And at that time, I had read, like, Ina May's Guide to Breastfeeding.
Oh.
At least the first 2 chapters. I did not finish this book, by the way. But I did read it, and all it goes through is the benefits of breastfeeding. And I don't know what I thought the dangers of formula were. I will go into it because I have a little more information.
Okay.
But I thought that if you knew the benefits of breastfeeding, you would do it.
Oh.
I thought...
So simple.
Closed case. I thought that people didn't breastfeed because they didn't know that it was so great for your child.
I have a question then.
Yes.
Were you breastfed as a kid, or does your family have a history of breastfeeding?
I was breastfed for like 6 weeks. My mom was in the military, went right back to work. That was the end of it.
Okay.
And it's not like anybody else talked about breastfeeding.
Okay.
It wasn't ever a conversation. The same thing about birth. Once I started getting birth, I was like, I have never heard any of this.
Right.
And I'm going to pull up what I took. I took some screenshots to talk about. But I don't have a really big history of knowing about those things or hearing about these things. So when I read the book and I went through the training, it was kind of just like, oh, that makes sense. Right?
Abby.
Yeah. And I was even looking at, so I was looking through Nurture. I don't know if you've read that book. It's just like modern day guide to motherhood and birth and blah, blah, blah. It's one of the better, like, childbirth education books that I've read, but it's still super gender. It's still super, like, natural birth and da-da-da.
Yeah.
But it talks about how the benefits of breastfeeding, which I'm sure people have heard, is breastfed babies enjoy a decreased risk of ear infections, childhood diabetes, obesity, gastrointestinal and diarrheal infections, childhood cancers, SIDS, respiratory infections, and allergies.
I've heard all those things.
Right? So we've heard all those things. But something else that I've learned is most of those also connect to your socioeconomic status.
Oh, of course.
Right?
Of course.
But no one says that. It doesn't say that in that book. I wrote it in this book. I wrote, star, most of these can be explained.
You were like,
that way if I ever loan out this book, no one reads it without the context.
I was thinking you were more like trying to post humorously tell the author like to put notes, like a footnote in there.
I just want everybody who comes into this book to know that there's more to this conversation. And the other thing that I saved, because it's Black Breastfeeding Week, which is great, no problems with that. But the thing that I saved is this post.
She's leaving us in anticipation.
In anticipation.
Right.
Where do I find my saved things? Okay, I found them. Sorry.
Don't worry, we're just a couple of millennials on
trying to figure out
Instagram.
Did you know, according to the CDC, increased breastfeeding among Black women could decrease infant mortality rates by as much as 50%. And that is all it says. There is no more information added to this statement. I just can't. I literally cannot. There's so many issues with that. Because first of all, if it was true, then like everybody would have a meeting with IBCLC. The hospitals would be full of them, right? To be making sure that Black women were breastfeeding and that everybody was breastfeeding because it's going to save all the babies.
Right.
But that's not true. Because and even if it was, there's so many barriers to breastfeeding.
That's what I think about.
There's so many barriers to it. And it's frustrating that you just drop that because you put that on to the people who aren't breastfeeding for whatever reason, because they don't want to. Oh, this is your fault. If you would have just breastfed, maybe your baby would be here. Like
Jesus.
It's really like the implications of that are so huge, right? Yeah. And I have an issue with that.
I think that's a fair thing.
You know, but we see doulas posting this stuff, reposting this stuff, and there's no conversation around it. And it really is frustrating, especially knowing the things I know now, you know? And that's why it's interesting that I had that bias and I didn't think twice about it until I started learning more, you know, about the barriers to breastfeeding. Because we've talked about this before. By like 6 months, 75% of babies are on some type of formula. They're not exclusively breastfed. Right. So formula is winning in this situation. Right. So all of this other stuff is what's leading to the shame of that. And it's not increasing breastfeeding rates. Yeah. You can't just increase the rates by saying, oh, I really want everyone to breastfeed, right? It's really good for you. It's really good for your baby. It'll save them from SIDS, which I don't think that's true, by the way. I don't think that's true, but that's the narrative that we're pushing.
It is interesting because just speaking to body feeding and breastfeeding alone, my first day with, and I'm going to name the organization because I'm the bitch, I did my initial training with Jonah, and the first day is about breastfeeding. By the way, at that point in time, I had been doing it straight, my own breastfeeding journey for 4 years. And I had gone through going to like Leche Leagues meetings and like getting into breastfeeding groups. I was a part of an organization here that helped like promote the laws so that you knew about being able to breastfeed in public. I was super into it and still am. But I found it interesting how little information was in that class. But they give you the cute certificate to be like, you know things now. Yeah. And I found it so problematic because I was like, this is like a 3-hour class. Like, you cannot be sending people out there. And I know for a fact some of these doulas are going to be regurgitating this information. And I came from a different background. My mom was not able to breastfeed either time, and she carried a lot of shame with it. She still does.
Yeah.
And then my mother-in-law was not able to breastfeed, but their breastfeeding journeys and why they ended were wildly different. My mom was not able to produce and not able to figure out latches and all of that. My mother-in-law came from a very religious background, and it was shameful.
Yes. Yeah.
So when we got this class, it was kind of what you're talking about. Of like, this is a better choice. It has all these benefits, but nobody was talking about like, all right, you have a super religious gal here, like a birther. How do you talk to her about the benefits and how to like allow that to be operating in her world?
Yeah.
Because sure, maybe they do want to breastfeed or like do something to express and give that nourishment over to baby, but their circumstances don't allow them to do it.
Yeah.
So how can I support them? On the other side, we're not taught at all about formula.
Yes.
Which I find to be an
Did
issue.
not know a thing. As I'm building my my childbirth education class, literally have had to do so much research about formula.
Right.
I had zero knowledge and information about it because it's not taught. They're
Right.
like, this is dangerous. It's more beneficial to breastfeed, so that's what we should teach. And again, why?
Exactly.
You know?
And
I had the same experience. I breastfed. I think it was great. It was really great for me. I had nothing but negativity. Everybody's like, that's gross. Shouldn't do that. Just formula. You know, this is a sexual thing. Don't
so
do
funny.
it. Oh, he has teeth? Why are you still breastfeeding? I've had clients be like, oh, it's disgusting when people
Like,
breastfeed their toddlers. And I'm like, okay, don't follow me on Instagram because you don't want to see it. But it's just, are your choices being supported?
Yeah.
Right? And to have the support that you need. Because we're not talking about how quickly people have to go back to work.
Yeah.
Right? And how pumping kind of sucks.
It doesn't kinda. It all sucks.
It kind of freaking sucks. And, you know, it's hard.
It's
and
really
it's a
hard.
lot of work and it's a lot of effort. And shout out to anybody who exclusively pumps because that's, like, amazing. And I've had a lot of people that I know exclusively pump, and they get shamed for that, too.
Yeah.
They get shamed for doing that. Their pediatricians will tell them to stop and just do formula, even though that's what they want to do. Or they'll tell them that they're not breastfeeding their child or not nursing their child. It's the same thing.
Yeah, for sure.
You know? But they have to do more work. And if they're taking on more work, that's fine.
Right.
That's their choice. You know? But to not have any support no matter what you do is wild.
Yeah.
There's not support for breastfeeding. There's not support for formula feeding. And there's not support for inclusive pumping or any of the choices.
So what's fascinating is right now I have a client who's a surrogate, and the conversation we had to have, which she had a hard time with, was how do we get lactation to stop?
Yes.
Because the family that she's a surrogate for is international.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way for her to pump and then like send it to them within the right amount of time.
Gotcha.
So that was something where I was like, I've been doing this a year and a half. Like, I'm not noob, but I'm not like super seasoned. I was like, well, I'm gonna have to go figure out information around that and like get resources and things because this is not something that we typically talk about in the birth world. There are going to be people who are like, nope, don't want it.
Yeah.
I am more versed in teaching people what to do with formula, but not how to stop lactation, which seems so silly that like I didn't learn that part.
But if someone wasn't planning on exclusively, you know, using formula, it's not something you would come into contact with.
Right.
But again, even not having that information, is that a bias? You know?
It is.
And like one you have to learn about, and they're like, oh,
duh.
yeah,
Right.
I should know how to do that. Yeah.
Because I even think about, I've had clients in the past who were SA victims, and that was a major thing that they did not want to do any sort of body feeding or breastfeeding.
The same with like some trans people.
Right.
That can be very dysphoric for them.
Right. So there's so many people out there that I don't think that we talk about that's not going to be their jam.
Yeah.
Right. And again, going back to like the training does you a disservice because the assumption of the person you're going to interact with, quite frankly, at least in Donna's perspective, is white. They are upper middle class. and they have resources.
Yep, they're a very particular person who will have the time and the support and the energy to do all that stuff.
Right.
And not have any, to be able to do that.
Right, for sure. And we're talking about 40 to 50 hours a week that you're doing some sort of feeding towards baby then.
Yep.
That's a long time and a lot of time.
It's a literal full-time job.
Right.
If I didn't do the job that I did, I really doubt that I would have been able to breastfeed as long as I did.
Yeah?
Yeah. So I was a server. I was able to, I forgot how we had this set up.
Close. Yeah.
Sorry. We're setting up a live so that people will know to come see us. This is just crazy. Okay, I'm going to give up. I'm just going to give up.
I'll do it. You finish your thought.
What was I saying?
About your job.
Oh, so I was server. I worked at night. I didn't have to go back to work till 3 months after I had my kid, which is far longer than the 6 months or the 6 weeks that people have.
Yeah.
And I was able to say, hey, I don't want to be here that long.
Right.
I was there to be there. I was able to be there for 4 or 5 hours, and I was there for a little while, and then the pandemic happened,
Right.
and I got to have a second maternity leave. So, but I was able to pump once while I was there. I was able to hand pump. It was very easy. It wasn't like a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was stressful to sit in a liquor room and pump. It was stressful to, only have 15 minutes to pump. But other than that, it wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
Because I was home all day and I was home all night.
Yeah.
But if I had any other job, I don't think that I could have pumped 6, 7, 8 times a day or however often you have to do that.
The only time I've had to pump is actually when I first became a doula. My very first job, my very first client, was a very long induction, and I had to pump while I was there. And this is how little I pumped. I didn't even think about bringing a cooler or anything. Yeah. So basically, it turned into a pumping belt, which is really sad to watch. As you're oh. Even though my baby at that point was 9 months old, she really didn't need it. It was more relief for me. Yeah. But it was that that's going away, and I know there's babies upstairs that could want it or use it. So yeah, I'm still the worst about being oh right, pumping. Yeah. Oh, that's a thing people have to do. And
so there's just so much work associated with breastfeeding, and to say that it's easier or it's cheaper or whatever. That's relative. It's very relative to what's easier. Yeah. And especially, and then if you're talking about partners and you're talking about, do you have a partner? Do you have a supportive partner? Do you have a partner who's there and can wake up in the middle of the night and give the baby a bottle or whatever? Yeah. It's there's just so much more stuff that goes into it. It's not just, if they knew the benefits, they would do it.
And we're not even talking about something at the point of, because some people don't have just one baby. They have twins or triplets or whatever the jam is.
That's a rough one.
Right, everyone. Yeah. But, that's another part that needs to be discussed of that whole training. So, ultimately, I think it's interesting that you were able to pull that one out so quickly. Of, there's that biases that was being planted. Yeah. Being planted, because that's really what happened when you use words like dangerous or any sort of failure language or super expressive to mean bells and whistles and caution, then you're planting a bias. It's on purpose.
And that's the point of the doula training. Yeah. Should be that you're learning these things that you may not have experienced yourself. Yeah. And you can you're learning these things that should cover a large range of people. Yeah. Not this one person who we think has a doula and needs a doula and can afford a doula. Yeah. Right? That's who we think is going to have a doula, and that's who we cater to.
Oh, of course.
But all those other factors even apply to those people. Even apply to the middle class, white person that's giving birth. All of those other things can still apply. All right, I'm dying to know what your bias is. I haven't heard it yet.
So I went in with a bias, and it got negated while I was at my doula training. And I know I'm changing up the formula. I will also explain the one that was given to me while I was there.
Perfect.
But
Love it.
the one I went in with is that all inductions are rough. I got corrected while I was there.
Yeah.
To give extra context, I went through an induction. It was 4 days. It was literal. I would not wish it upon anyone. I had every possible intervention thrown at my body, and my body said, "This baby's not coming out." So I went in believing that there was no way you could have a nice induction, or there was any way to make induction to truly work with bodies, especially because you get exposure when you're a part of the VBAC community. They're very quick to talk about cascade of interventions. They're very quick to talk about inductions and dropping your rates of possible cesareans and putting yourself in a situation that could need a cesarean. Mm-hmm. So I went in with all of that baggage. Which I don't think I was alone in my group with baggage from their own births and the things they were coming in with. And during that time, our instructor talked to us about inductions and all these different methods, and it being on average that people do respond well to it. Yeah. And that was a mindfuck for me to have to get over. What do you mean? That some people do well with it? Like, the like residual anger that came up during it.
Because of your experience was different.
It was different, and it had been confirmed so many times already in the spaces that I was floating in that I wasn't different, that I was the norm. And then to encounter that thing of like an instructor being like, "No, actually she's attended thousands of births," and she's like, "Yours was a weird case. Like, it's actually weirder to have what you had happen than the opposite." Yeah, right. And I was like, no, you can't do that. You can't, you can't do that. So it was through that education that I did learn the ways to make an induction work with your body or work with the birther's body, and like how to set them up. That's funny. She's saying it was her first 3 births that were inductions. So that's what I learned during that time, was how to make it work with me or work with the birther instead of against them, and those tools. And I was like, this would have been nice to know for mine. But it did make me a better doula after the fact, because I was able to be like, your garbage isn't everyone's garbage.
And I think that's a big, big thing you have to put down as a doula.
Yeah.
Whatever your baggage is not everybody else's. And what your story is not going to be everybody else's. And that is, I think, a really hard pill to swallow. You know? And by the way, someone on the live says that their first 3 doula births were long, long inductions. Yeah. So it does happen. Yeah. The first induction I went to was like so fast. It was like 13 hours, like from the time they were induced really to the time baby was there, and totally blew my mind.
Yeah, 3-day inductions back to back.
Yep. That's tough.
Yeah. So I think that it's really important to talk about, and the reason I brought it up is so often I've seen 2 groups of people who tend to go to doula trainings. There's those working through their garbage, and they're going there to learn more so they can, like, work through their shit. And then there's those who had wonderful, beautiful births and, like, just shot babies out with no problem.
What's that like? I would love to know.
Right? Shot babies out, and now they're coming in because they've seen the magic of birth. The magic of birth. The beauty of birth. Yeah. So the bias I ended up leaving my doula training with was that I could rescue anyone. I mean, we're gonna get real. But essentially, that if
I just learned that I have another bias. I had another bias.
From me saying this, you're like, whoops, never mind. But I did go through that training because they're talking to you essentially everything that you would learn in like a multi-week childbirth education course. But not only that you're going to be by the side. They give you those stats of like people have better birth outlooks, not outcomes, and that's a really easy thing to miss. Outlooks with a doula or continuous support. That's the other word that we tend to miss as doulas when we share those like stats of like, yeah, it could be grandma who provides that continuous support. It's not because it was a doula.
Yeah.
And you being there does make their outlook be better, not their outcome. Yeah. And I ended up
and the outlook is valid.
It is. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's just during my time there, I thought I had all these tools to be able to rescue somebody from like a shitty experience. Mm-hmm. And it only took 2 births to figure out, like, no,
that's not what happened.
No, that's not what I was trained in.
That was part of my personal bias coming into that, because with my experience, I felt like after I'd learned all of this stuff, I'm like, if I had just made one different decision when I was in labor, or if someone had just said, hey, if someone had told me, I thought if someone had told me this, I would have made a different decision. I wouldn't have had the traumatizing part of my labor that I did have, and everything would be great, right? But I can't say that's true.
Right.
And if my doula had just got there earlier, no, I made that choice.
Yeah.
Right? I made the choice for an epidural for myself, and I was confident in that choice in that moment.
Right.
I was 100% like, this is the right thing. I didn't know what was going to happen after, but it's just, you think that like, oh, someone could have saved me, so I'm going to save someone else.
And I think that's the biggest part of that puzzle piece of like thinking I could save someone comes from this idea that someone would actually fucking listen to me. I'm sorry.
And they don't listen. They don't listen to us. They don't. And they don't have to, but it is very, You think like, oh, I'm a professional and I'm getting paid to do this. People are going to listen to my opinion, and people are going to listen to what I have to say.
And, I mean, they definitely hear it.
Yeah.
And yes, over on Instagram, if you guys want to go there, you could. But we tried to stream it live as well. But yeah, yes, owning your choices in the moment with the information you have, I think is so important. And I think that's 90% of our jobs as doulas is to be like, here's all that possible information that pertains to you.
Yeah.
And that you could help make a better decision or a different decision or the one that makes you most comfortable. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the biggest thing was that even with presenting them that information, they could still make the choice only sitting in my biases, in my thought, that is the wrong choice or the more difficult choice.
Yeah.
Because I've had people who have gone into the induction unnecessarily. I've had people go into a situation where I was like, that wasn't a safe move. Or whatever it may be, but they are so confident, and my job is not to make sure that they make the best decision. My job is to provide information and then support from there.
Yeah.
Which I think...
Because the information and the opinions that we share, they're suggestions.
Yep.
And learning that the opinions people give you and the opinions you give other people are suggestions kind of lets some of that go, at least for me. When I started thinking of it that way, like, I'm not telling them what to do. And who am I to tell them what to do, like you said? And the whole point is we're supposed to empower people, and that's the word that everybody wants to use. We're going to empower people who are giving birth. Okay, empower them to make the choice and say, this is the right choice. And that's the thing, is that even for my birth, I said, this is the right choice. Mm-hmm. I actually said, fuck you. Please give me an epidural. And the nurse was like, all right, let's get you some fluids. Just speaking from my own experience.
And she walks out of the room like this, like.
And I heard her tell the anesthesia, like, she's struggling. Like, in the nicest way possible. Please hurry, because I'm like, fuck, shit. Like, so upset. So upset, So it was the right decision for me. It's not like this person was going to come save it, right?
I had a very particularly hard time with this lesson, and it's still something, I'm going to be real, I still have moments of this struggle with, and it's because of the people I specialize in.
Yes.
Being someone who's had 2 VBACs, being someone who, if you do tell them what to do, and it doesn't work out, they are going to blame you for it, and that is true. But, yeah.
I mean, they probably will.
Yeah.
They probably will blame you. They might not blame the provider.
That's the fascinating one.
Yeah. That's another conversation, but they might not blame the provider that gave them the advice. But, sorry, continue.
No, you're good. You're good. But because I come from a story that's so similar to so many of my clients, it can be really difficult at points. And there are times when I've been at prenatals and I've been like, hey, I just need to step away for a moment.
Yep.
Because I can feel myself going from a suggestion place to a like, I'm never leaving your side. I'm going to make sure everything turns out all right. I'm going to be your shield, your armor, and your wisdom and your knowledge, and like, I got you. Yeah. And it's like, ooh, that was unhealthy. That just went to an unhealthy place, Emmy. So, and I don't think it's purposeful on doula trainings. I don't think they're going in being like, let's make sure that they walk away with this narrative.
Yeah.
But I think it's so easy to walk away with that narrative.
If you're not actively trying to not give off that narrative.
Yeah.
When I was even looking into what a doula was, or if I wanted to become it was very much like, doulas are the bodyguards. Doulas are the ones who are going to stop obstetric violence. Like, that was really the narrative that I saw. That wasn't in my doula training, but that was the narrative that I saw in so many places.
Yeah.
That we're going to save everybody, you know? And it's not true.
Yeah, because there's plenty of times where I have seen obstetric violence. I have seen the bullying or the side that no one likes to talk about that's happening in certain providers' practices and that kind of thing. And that's why I've become the doula I am now, where I'm like, hey, if you're with one of those, no thanks.
Yeah.
You can change. And
those boundaries are great to have.
Right, for sure. But it can be really upsetting being the person coming to you being like, are you going to rescue me? And I have to look at them and be like, not me, babes. Not me. I'm sorry. Like,
well, and that's the whole thing. Even, like, I'm not going to speak for you.
Right.
I can't. Is that my place?
Right.
To speak for somebody else, you know? And it's hard. It's hard to say, hey, would you like to talk to the nurse about this when they come back? And they're like, no. Are you sure? It seems like you're concerned about it. No, that's okay. What can I do? I can't do anything about that in that situation. You know? I've done what I can do.
Yeah.
So you do have to kind of let that go.
Yeah.
That was my tool, was to talk to you about it and ask if you wanted to have that conversation. If you don't want to have the conversation, like, it's hard. It's really hard. That is probably the hardest part. I will, like, step out when that happens. If I feel like I'm becoming overwhelmed, to, you know, text my doula bestie. Sometimes I text my husband. It's just like, here's this frustrating thing this provider did. And I can't do anything about it.
I can't tell you how many times I've been in the little canteen in the hospital texting my doula bestie being like, girl, this is not going well. Like, I'm being in the panic mode. Like, oh, this is not going to go well. I'm going to have to do a fuck ton of cleanup as soon as this is over. Yeah. And it's hard to watch what I describe as like watching someone go down that conveyor belt or whatever it may be. But again, they're actively choosing to stay on it. Yeah. And
there's also some things that, you know, that I will be frustrated by, but I'm like, medically, there's nothing you can do.
Right.
You know? Like, I know that it would probably move you along to get you in a different position. But if they can't find the baby's heartbeat, I can't do anything about it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what happened at one of my recent births. And it was very frustrating. And it sucks. Yeah. Because sometimes there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
You know? I tried literally every position you could possibly be in.
You got the Kama Sutra out. You're
Like,
like
literally every position. I even was Googling stuff after I had ran out of ideas, but every time I was like, if you can't find the baby, please lay back down, you know?
The one that probably hurt me the most, it was a birth that I was at. I mean, she was incredible to watch. She did perfectly, like textbook. And at the last moment, kid took a wrong turn in Albuquerque and lodged themselves. And this was someone attempting to feedback. I mean, we went through all the heartbreak talk. The hardest one was, and it's still, like, when we talk about word haunting, like, this is one of those that haunts me. Her husband turned to me and said, I don't believe in God anymore. Ooh. And, like, it is those moments where
yeah.
Because they had wanted something so bad. And they had made all the right decisions, and they had done everything possible, and I had gone through fear release, and I had gone through, like, we had gone through all the things, and they still didn't get the outcome. I couldn't rescue them from this outcome. And so I remember the next day I went home, next day, it was 3 a.m. when I went home, after being there for 24 hours, and it took me a good week to, like, heal my soul, because everything in my body wanted, I would have traded places in that moment. I would have done anything to make this happen. And the providers were awesome. They really, like, were very receptive to them. They were very open-hearted. Everyone on the team really walked them through this, but it was still hard to watch because it looked like it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I compare birth a lot to, like, have you ever done weapons training at all? Okay. So
I mean, I tried to shoot a gun once and I, like, had a panic attack.
Okay. Never mind. So when you're trained with weapons in a form of safety, you treat it as if it's always loaded and if that it's going to hurt, in particular kill. So
that's what gave me the panic attack.
Right. So you keep it pointed down. Good. You had healthy respect for it.
Yes.
But you keep it pointed down at all times. You keep rechecking those chambers to make sure it's fully unloaded, all of that. And that's how I treat birth now. And my ability to not fall into that, like, rescue mode. Yeah. I am in constant checking mode to make sure that I am never, like, heading to that place.
That's actually great.
Because if I don't keep rechecking those chambers, it's so fast.
And that's something that people don't want to talk about. You could do literally everything right. You could have all the right positions and all the right affirmations and all the right steps and the great provider and whatever, and you still can't guarantee an outcome.
Yeah.
There's literally nothing you can do, and it's heartbreaking and it's haunting to see people not get the births they want. And it sucks sometimes.
And it was so hard to reframe it in that moment because I was like, hey guys, I know we didn't get the outcome we wanted, but I want us to name 3 things that we did get. Yeah. And that was so hard in my body to say in that moment.
You're like, I don't even want to talk about
it. I don't even want to reframe this right now. I just want it to be like the way I want it. And the 3 things were she really wanted to labor at home as long as possible. Mm-hmm. She wanted no pit. She never got any pit. And she was able to experience pushing.
Yeah.
Because she got to the point where she felt pushy.
Yeah.
So she got 3 incredible experiences out of it. However, it wasn't the one that she truly wanted. So the thing that reframing and that need to rescue, like, still a little bit there. Like, all right, I can't make this different for you, but I'm going to make sure when we leave here, you're not, like, completely devastated. So, yeah. But that's the one I left my doula training with, and the one that I still battle today.
Yeah,
I think that's a heavy topic.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really feels like there's such a weight placed on doulas, on doula training. Like I said, you're supposed to end obstetric violence, one birth at a time.
Yeah.
You know, and there's just so many cases where there's nothing you can do, or you did everything you could, and it's not enough to, avoid the C-section or avoid the whatever someone was trying to avoid, you know? And then it doesn't, it's hard, you know? Which would lead me to the question, have you felt at any point like you're like, I can't do this?
Oh, several times.
Yeah.
Yeah, several times. Several times I have had moments where I'm like, I don't know if this is the right gig for me.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you look around, and I'm a year and a half in, I'm still in the, actually, in the grand scheme of doulaing, I'm an old person.
Yeah, because everybody leaves so quickly. Yes.
They leave within 3 years, but I think it's because they run into this exact mental game that they have to play.
Yeah.
And they get tired of playing it.
Yeah.
But that's the reason it burns you out. And yeah, I've had several of those moments where I'm like, I don't know if this is a great idea.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm the right person for this.
Yeah.
The thing that keeps me here is that it was a small thing said to me after my first birth, because it went really bad. That one went really bad. That was an emergency hysterectomy. I mean, like, all the worst things.
Yeah.
All the worst things. The doula I spoke to be able to unpack, who's now my doula partner, said she had a better birth because you were there.
Yeah.
And that was so impactful in that moment, and such a thing, and it's something I still carry with me today. I'll say to other doulas, of like, they had a better birth just because you were there.
Yeah. Because, like you said, the outcome can be changed, but the outlook can.
Yeah.
And the outlook is, in some ways, more important.
It is more important.
How you feel about it when you leave, or a year later, or all of that stuff is really important.
It is.
You know?
I completely believe it is. So yeah, that's me being very frank. Do you ever think about that?
I did my third and fourth births, which I've told you this story, were free of charge, and they both started They both started on the same day.
I can't believe this story.
And, you know, like 30-something hours later, I'm driving home, and I'm just, like, crying.
Yeah.
And I'm, like, talking to my husband. I'm like, I can't do this. I can't be I can't be the person in the room who, like, it's like you feel like you know too much, right? I feel that a lot. Like, I know too much, right? We know about the cascade of interventions, and we know that, you know, typically things don't go this way, or, you know, we know all of this information, we take in all these statistics and things like that, and you still can't do anything about it. You're still not a medical professional. You're still not the person deciding or suggesting when they switch from Cytotec to Pitocin, or, like, you don't get to make those decisions, right? And it sucks.
I think the other side of that, too, is we know so much that we'll end up shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yeah.
Because there's so many times, and I've witnessed it, where there's doulas telling their people information that they really don't need to know, and you're freaking them out.
Yeah.
Or the opposite side, a really famous, like, TikToker put out her video of her doula telling her, even though you're in early labor with a premature baby, more than likely, don't go to the hospital. We can give you castor oil and all that in medical advice, and, like, way stepping outside of a scope. Yeah, it can happen on the other side of, like, we almost know too much, and you need to shut the fuck up.
Yeah, and even doing that is really hard for me, because I never shut the fuck up. but I feel like that's been the ultimate balance with clients in this work, is deciding what to share and what not to share, and if is this information they want. And I usually ask that, you know, would you like some information about this? You know, they're talking about this type of induction. Would you like me to send you this? If the answer is no, then that's fine.
Right.
But so I had the two births. They were physically intense. They were mentally intense. They were happening simultaneously. I had to call in a backup, even though I wasn't getting paid. Thank goodness I had someone who was nice and loves me and was okay being there. But the second one was transferred from the birth center. It's in the hospital. ended up with a C-section. The time that she was laboring, she saw 2 babies born at the birth center. One of them was my other client's. And she was defeated. She's at the hospital. She's with the epidural. She's so upset. The doctor's talking about a C-section. She's heartbroken. And again, like, this work is haunting. The things you see, the things you hear, the emotions you feel are so heavy, you know? And at some point, I was like, I swapped out for a backup, and I left. Because I was bringing in this terrible energy, because it'd been like 35 hours at that point. And, you know, I left just like, I can't do this. I couldn't be there for both births. I couldn't help this person not, you know, end up with an epidural and a C-section and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't know what to do with all of that, you know. And I just really questioned it. Like, is this what I want to do? Is this something I could be good at? I really felt that being so empathetic was a superpower, but it's almost a detriment sometimes because you have to turn it off.
Yeah.
Because you can't take on those feelings. But so, long story short, I went home. I slept.
You slept.
I ate a meal. And I said, okay, I guess I can do this. It did help that that client was able to have a vaginal birth.
Oh.
And that was what she was so heartbroken. And having the conversation with her about a C-section literally still gives me chills.
Yeah.
Because it sucked.
Yeah.
It sucked to feel that emotion that she had and the disappointment that she had, you know? And it sucked to see a provider who was pushing it and wasn't being the nicest about it. Like, all of those things just, like, sucked.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was just, okay, I need to put some of that empathy down.
Yeah.
I can't take on the anxiety of, when's this person going to go into labor? I can't take on the outcome.
No.
I can't take on the emotion about the choices they make or about the choices they have to make. And I have to get paid for this.
Yeah.
That was the big realization. I needed to do those free for my certification. That's fine. But I literally was like, this is why people get paid for it. Because I know that I felt, and I've heard a lot of doulas saying, I love this. I love this work, right? Because you do a couple births and you have that adrenaline, you know, that endorphin rush of birth. And you're like, I don't need to get paid for this. You need to get paid for it. You 1,000% need to get paid for this work because it's valuable and it's important and it's skilled work.
Yeah, it is.
You know, and that was my big aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is skilled work. This is a skill. To be able to turn that off, to be able to inform without invalidating, to be able to support without putting my own emotions on other people, that's a skill. And that's a skill a lot of people don't have and probably never will have.
Exactly.
Because nobody likes to inform without invalidating your choices. that kind of goes back to what we're talking about with the, you know, infant feeding. There's literally no right answer.
Right.
But, you know, it was kind of like a wake-up call for me. Like, I can do this work. I want to do this work. But I have to put some stuff down.
Yeah.
You know? And it's that, like, savior complex a little bit.
I think it's easy to fall into.
Yeah.
And I think if we were to be honest as doulas and, like, this were a conversation, every person has not just one story, but several stories of them falling into that complex.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw it, and I think in a way I was lucky that my first birth went so poorly.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was the literal kick in the nuts of, like, you can't make it better. You can't make it different. You are here not for that.
Yeah.
You are here for support and nothing else. And it was the, like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Like,
and that goes back to what we talked about last week. Was
Yeah.
I learned what support is.
Right.
Support is not saving someone, right? It's what do you need to be supported? And answering that and helping with that, you know?
Yeah.
So we got some comments.
And they don't value you if they don't pay you. They need to pay in some kind of way.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. And I mean,
agree.
we could do like 17 episodes alone on paying for doulas. And because like, it's one of my many like places that I have no patience for with certain organizations requiring free services and not setting up doulas for business or any of that because of what we're talking about, that it's a skill. And you're having people with giant hearts do this work.
Yeah.
And we're burning through them.
And that's the thing. Eventually you're going to run out of people to take advantage of.
Right.
And you're going to run out of people. I've heard people who are professionals, freelancers or artists or whatever, you have to charge enough to sustain your family. Yeah. Otherwise, you don't get to do the work. Yeah. You don't get to do the valuable things. You don't get to offer the support. You don't get to offer the art or whatever it is. You need to charge enough to sustain your family.
Yeah.
And that goes with anything.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, how are you going to keep doing it?
I need to eat.
Yes. And your children need to eat. And, you need housing. And, you need all of those things.
For sure.
For
sure. Yeah. So I think it's probably a bias. Again, I don't think Donut purposely, unlike where you were speaking about the one of dangers of formula, I don't think this one's ever purposely put into trainings. And I know there's several trainings out there that kind of leave this, I'll put it as a sensation in your body. It's not even a thought. It's like a sensation that you come out feeling. But I also don't love that they don't make it clear that that is not the point of this.
And clear what your job is and what your position is. Yeah.
Right. Because that's an easy thing that we could at least
you could clarify.
Weave around.
To say.
Right. Yeah. Weave around. Yeah. Especially there's organizations out there all about advocacy and major heavy topics. Yeah. And even in theirs, at times I have those feelings because I've taken a couple of them where I'm like, oh shit, there's that sensation again that little old Emmy can change the whole fucking world.
Well, and that's how I felt about that post about up to 50% of Black infant deaths could be prevented if more people were breastfeeding. That's it?
Yeah.
You really think that that's going to solve this issue?
Yeah.
And it's not maybe just partially racism that's causing these problems,
Right.
And breastfeeding's going to solve it?
Yeah. Don't you know?
It's these things that are easily boiled down into a social media post that there's so much more of a conversation to be had.
Yeah. For sure. Well, I think that's the perfect place to end this because we just hit an hour. Yeah. Hey guys, this week we remembered to record. So if you guys didn't catch us right now, not a problem. It's going to be up on our YouTube channel probably in the next couple of days. Yep. Next week we're talking about a really cool topic. Miss Alex, what was the cool topic?
I'm going to look it up.
Sweet.
I'm going to look it up. I
don't remember. But leave comments, head over to our YouTube channel and leave comments there. I would love to be able to do a whole segment where we're able to read people's responses to us in the next week's episode. If you're a birth worker who would like to come onto our podcast and maybe hang out with us, let us know because we have plans for the next 5 to 6 weeks. However, we would love to have others on because we're just two people.
There's so many more
voices
and perspectives. Yeah,
correct.
But we have a Gmail, right?
We do. It's at ringofirepodcast@gmail.com.
Yes.
So you guys
email us anything, any thoughts, ideas, you want to be on the podcast, any of that stuff.
Right.
Next week, we are talking about how to meet clients where they're at and support them while maintaining your own boundaries.
So perfect. That won't be loaded at all. It won't be loaded at all. Maybe we will get into pay.
Maybe we will get into pay, because those are some boundaries.
But thank you guys for joining us. Next week we probably won't stream anymore with the Instagram, so you guys actually have to join us. But tell your friends about us. Head over to Twitch and subscribe to us. a really cool thing. Once we get 50 subscribers on there, we're able to like sustain our life on this. Speaking about doulas who need to get paid, so like come over to Twitch and subscribe to us.
And if you weren't here last week, we talked about how I need money so I can go back to therapy.
Yeah. It's you know, leave a tip so we can get Alex back to Brenda. So thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Beautiful.